This is the Sony ULT Field 3, and just like the Sony ULT Field 5, Sony has gone in and they have fixed and improved everything. And I'll be honest, I did not like the Sony XE300 one bit. It was big, it was ugly, and it sounded like a muffled mess. But now we have the Sony ULT Field 3. Yeah, it's a little big, but it's still a great mid-size speaker for summer 2025. So let's see what the Sony ULT Field 3 is all about, and let's see how it compares to both the Sony XE300 and the fan favorite, the Sony XB33. It's not even close, and that's good. Regarding pricing, the Sony ULT Field 3 has a retail price of $200. Unfortunately, this is a $50 price increase from both the XE300 and XB33 from when they first came out. But the Sony ULT Field 3 isn't the only mid-size speaker to get a price increase recently. Nonetheless, if you want to pick this speaker up, it'll be linked down below, or you can always press on the YouTube shopping button. And if you want to further support the channel, then you can always pick up some merch. So first, there's the design of this speaker. Just like the ULT Field 5, the Sony ULT Field 3 has a very basic rectangular design to it. But obviously, it is smaller and lighter, and it's also way thinner. However, it is noticeably larger than both the XE300 and XB33, but nonetheless, the ULT Field 3 is a much better option than its predecessors if you're looking for something portable, because this speaker comes included with a shoulder strap, and the shoulder strap is identical to the one that comes included with the ULT Field 5. It feels very premium, and I like the embroidered look. And just like the ULT Field 5, if you don't want to use the shoulder strap, you can opt for a clean design, or if you want to use the shoulder strap, all you have to do is just flip these rubber stoppers. You just gotta be good with your fingers. And again, the ULT Field 3 is super durable thanks to its mostly fabric wrap body, and it's also rocking an IP67 rating, so water is not going to be an issue for this speaker. And I also want to point out that the ports on this speaker are covered. So even if the speaker were to get wet, if you were to take it to the beach, lake, or pool, you don't have to wait for this speaker to dry up before you can charge it back up. And this is a small deal because some speakers just keep their ports exposed. And before you can charge them back up, you got to make sure that the ports are properly dry. And I know that this is a very niche scenario, but this is something that I have had to deal with in the past, so I just want to let you guys know about it. The only unfortunate thing design-wise is no, the ULT Field 3 did not bring back the light feature like on the XB33, which I actually think looks pretty good. And no, the ULT Field 3 doesn't have a light feature like the ULT Field 5, which I actually think looks pretty good and it is worth using. So here's hoping that the next version of this speaker has a built-in light feature. Personally, I really wouldn't mind having that light feature in the passive radiators like on the ULT 5. Now, when it comes to battery life, this is a very big upgrade. Now, all three of these speakers have an advertised battery life of 24 hours. However, both the XB33 and XE300 have an advertised battery life of 24 hours while they're playing at 50% volume and while in stamina mode. So you're not going to get all that much bass out of them. Whereas with the ULT Field 3, this speaker has an advertised battery life of 24 hours with its ULT feature turned on. So you're going to be getting the most out of this speaker. You're going to be getting more bass and more sound pressure. And at max volume and with the ULT feature turned on, Sony claims that the ULT Field 3 is going to be good for around 5 hours of playback time. But real-world use for me, with this speaker playing at 80% volume and with the ULT feature turned on, the ULT Field 3 is good for around 12 hours of playback time. Not bad at all. And 80% volume on the ULT Field 3 is way louder than 80% volume on these other two speakers, even with the ULT feature turned off. And like I mentioned earlier, the speaker charges via a USB-C port just like these other two speakers. But the really cool thing here is you can actually use the USB-C port on the ULT Field 3 to charge your own devices, which I think is super convenient. However, you can't use this USB-C port as a wired connection. And sadly, you can't use this speaker with a wired connection, period, because it doesn't have an audio jack. But when it comes to Bluetooth connectivity, the speaker can be connected to two devices at the same time, so you and a friend can both be DJ. Latency is not an issue for this speaker, so you can use it to watch videos with on your phone. And when it comes to audio codecs, it has support for SBC and AAC, but it doesn't have support for LDAC like with the ULT Field 5. But wait, if you want to further support the channel, then check out our partners over at Factor. Factor ships chef-cooked meals right to your door, which are genuinely very tasty, they're healthy, and they're super easy to prepare, and cleanup is super easy as well. You can choose from 40 different meals a week, and you can sort through them by preferences or dietary needs. Personally, I'm a fan of the Tex-Mex beef bowl. It's hearty and spicy. The chimichurri chicken breast is super tasty and macro-friendly, and the honey butter chicken breast with mashed potatoes are perfect for when you need something warm and comfy. So click on our link down below and get 50% off on your first order, and you're gonna get free shipping for life, and you're gonna get 2 free add-ons for life as well. I actually went with the wellness shots. Factor makes it very easy to eat good, save money, and save time. But with all that out of the way, let's talk about sound. Regarding speaker setup, both the XB33 and XE300 have dual front firing woofers and dual passive radiators that shoot out the sides, and this is a very old speaker setup for more premium brands. But now, the ULT Field 3 has a front firing woofer and a front firing tweeter and dual passive radiators that shoot out the sides. And the fact that the ULT Field 3 now has a woofer and tweeter setup is a big deal, because this is going to help your speakers sound more open and have a better instrument separation like this. So, like you may have just seen, the woofer handles the mids and the tweeter handles the highs. So this is going to help with instrument separation, and it's going to help the speaker just sound overall more open. And this woofer and tweeter setup is more common on more premium brands. And through Sony's app, you can also go in and adjust the EQ on the speaker. But personally, I just use my ULT Field 3 and ULT Field 1 with their ULT feature turned on. But more importantly, Sony is improving the apps on their speakers, and this is actually the same app that you would use if you have a pair of Sony headphones. So it's a lot better and a lot sleeker than the old Music Center app. But now we're gonna go ahead and jump into the sound test. All of these speakers are playing at 75% volume, and both the XB33 and XE300 have their mega bass and extra bass features turned on, and we're going to be using the ULT Field 3 with the ULT feature turned on and off.
It's sunset on Friday, I'm stuck on the highway, it's been a while. I'm late to the party, you already started the sparkling wine. I need to find a spark to keep me from the dark. I'm looking for a fire starter tonight to light me up. Don't let me burn to the ground. I wasted time. These city lights, still I can't get you out my mind. I need a fire starter tonight. I'm looking for a I'm down in the mirror with perfume and glitter. I'm on the way. Feels like I'm 16. Your blue eyes and ripped jeans. What can I say? As long as there's a spark to keep me from the dark.
So, like you may have just seen, the Sony ULT Field 3 easily sounds much better and gets way louder than both the XP33 and XE300, even with the ULT feature turned off. The problem with the XE300 is just that this speaker sounded super muffled, and no matter what you did to its EQ, you just couldn't get it to sound good. And the XP33 easily sounded better than the XE300, but the problem is it just couldn't get as loud as you'd want it to get. But now with the ULT Field 3, that's a completely different story. First off, the speaker gets a lot louder and it has a lot more bass than its predecessor. But more importantly, the speaker sounds a lot more open and there's a lot better emphasis on the mids, so the speaker sounds a lot fuller as well. Now, just like Sony's new ULT family of speakers, the ULT Field 3 has an ULT button. But unlike the ULT Field 5 or ULT Field 7, which have 2 levels to their ULT button, the ULT Field 3 and the ULT Field 1 only have 1 ULT level. And the main difference between having ULT turned on and off on the speaker is just going to be the bass. You're going to get a slightly warmer sound signature out of the speaker with the ULT feature turned on, but even though it's rocking a warmer sound signature, those mids are still well pronounced. Overall, the ULT Field 3 follows the same trend as the rest of Sony's new speakers, and this speaker just genuinely sounds a lot better than its predecessors because it has much better mids, but it still delivers a lot of bass for its size. And I feel that this speaker is going to be good for like a 5 to 8 person get-together. However, just keep in mind, if you were to use this speaker while it's plugged in, you're not going to get a very noticeable performance boost out of it. But finally, let's talk about pairing the speaker up with other speakers. Now, with the ULT Field 3, if you have 2 of the exact same speakers, then you can wisely pair them up and get them to play in left and right stereo mode. But also, the ULT Field 3 is using Sony's Party Connect, so you can pair it up with other Sony speakers that are also using Party Connect, like either a Sony ULT Field 7, and again, you guys have been sleeping on this speaker for the last year, or with an XG500, XG300, XE300, XE200, XP43, XP33, or XP23, or to a Sony ULT Field 5, or to another Sony ULT Field 3, and you can pair up to 100 speakers together and get them to play in sync. But also, you can pair your smaller Sony speaker to any of Sony's larger box speakers that are also using Party Connect, like an ULT Tower 10, ULT Tower 9, or to an XV800 or XV500, or to an XP700 or XP500. The only unfortunate thing here is that you cannot connect your Sony ULT Field 1 to a Sony ULT Field 3, and I really feel that this is unfortunate because the Sony ULT Field 1 is still my favorite small size speaker to use and to recommend, and I really feel that Sony dropped the ball here because if these two could pair up, this would be a really good combination. Now, no, the Sony ULT Field 3 isn't using Auracast, so if you plan on growing your collection of speakers, you are going to have to stick inside of Sony's ecosystem. But personally, I don't really mind. I think it's just a small amount of people that are planning on buying multiple speakers from multiple brands and pairing them up. But more importantly, I have noticed that Sony's Party Connect is more stable and easier to use compared to Auracast, because what I've noticed for at least right now, when I try to connect my different Auracast speakers together, echoes do regularly form. But with all that being said, the Sony ULT Field 3 just continues this trend from Sony where they're just fixing and improving everything. From a sound quality standpoint, the ULT Field 3 gets louder than both the XE300 and XP33. But more importantly, it sounds a lot more open and a lot more balanced. And the battery life on the speaker has been greatly improved as well, because you can now get up to 24 hours of battery life out of it, and that's with its ULT feature turned on. And you can now use the USB-C port on the speaker to charge your own devices, which is super useful if you plan on taking it on the go with you. Now, this speaker is a little larger than some other mid-size speakers out there, but it's still great to take on the go with you because it comes included with the shoulder strap. The only thing is, yes, the ULT Field 3 has gotten a price increase, but I still think that this speaker is well worth it. If you made it this far, I guess you enjoyed the video, so hit the like button and get subscribed. If you want to pick any of the products up, they'll be linked down below. And if you want to further support the channel, check out the merch. I made some shirts and hoodies that look and feel great. And you know I can be very particular, so I'll only slap my name on something if I'm really proud of it.